hustling and stress and all of that landed me in hospital. It is a really toxic culture. I was also rewiring my brain in the process.
You're helping these people untap their limitless potential without the drug.
Visualization is a mental practice that is so deeply wired in science that we should take it seriously. The ones who just mentally rehearsed, there was between 18 and 20% change in their performance. They actually saw changes in the muscles in their fingers. 90% of people, they are limiting themselves with how their brain works. We seek comfort and we're addicted to our problems too. Your mind is half your health. So whether it's important or not is not really a question. I'll be really honest here.
Welcome to another weekly episode of Strategy and Tragedy, the show that spotlights the highs and lows of starting, scaling, and even exiting a business. Because, as we all know, entrepreneurship is a roller coaster. I believe it has been overly glamorized in recent years, but that's not to say that you shouldn't still go for it. The purpose of this show is to help you avoid the most common pitfalls by learning from others who are a few steps ahead of you in their own entrepreneurial journey, and to gain inspiration from a diverse lineup of truly admirable guests. Speaking of admirable guests, coming up on today's show, we have Raichoora, the CEO and co-founder of Remap Mental Fitness, who envisions a world where mental fitness is as common as physical fitness. She helps CEOs, athletes, and performers become the top 1% in their field through the power of visualization. So I cannot wait to get stuck in. Just before I do, a quick thank you for tuning into my show. I know that there are so many other podcasts out there that you can choose from, so it really does mean the world to me that you're listening in right now, so thank you so much. If you haven't already, it costs nothing and takes a quick second for you to hit that subscribe button. Now that's out the way, Maya, welcome to the show.
Hi.
So there is so much that I want to ask you, but I'm going to keep it focused on your entrepreneurial journey and, of course, visualization. Now, what I was thinking was, instead of explaining what visualization is, I'd love for you to share a really cool exercise that our listeners can do while they're tuning in right now.
Yeah, okay. So in the next 30 seconds, what I will guide you through is a very good example of essentially what visualization is. So if you want to close your eyes for me, and I want you to imagine that you are in a kitchen and you open the fridge. And in the fridge, there's a segment of a lemon. And so I just want you to pick this lemon up. It's quite cold. You can feel the tough yellow skin. And I want you to take this lemon closer to your face and just start smelling it. It's very fragrant. You can already start smelling how sour the lemon is. And now I want you to start slowly squeezing the juice of this lemon into your mouth. Drop by drop, really taste the juice of it. So really squeeze all of it in. It's very cold, it's very sour. You're really tasting it. And your saliva might be going a little bit crazy. You might be getting that tingling feeling. And just really the last few bits of that juice, I really want you to squeeze it all in there. Really taste it. Okay, and if you just open your eyes now, you might have felt, your body go a little bit weird, or you get that like weird feeling here, and it's just quite tingly. But none of you are actually holding a lemon, right? But in that 30 seconds, we just visualized you holding a lemon and squeezing the juice in, and yet your mind and body have reacted like it has happened. And you can do this with like a Tang Fantastic, that sort of thing. But it's a really quick example to show you how connected the mind and body are, and how, if you take advantage of the brain, this skill could be very powerful in your life.
My mouth is fully salivated.
I can see you were like,
works there you can see. It's like, oh my God, it's like filled with saliva. I love that. Such a powerful exercise that if you followed along with that, hopefully you've had some kind of physical reaction to that mental visualization. So what's the science behind this?
Yeah, so put very simply, the brain really struggles to know the difference between what's real and imagined. So take the lemon, right? None of you are holding it, but the way your brain works is the same or nearly identical neural pathways will activate when you are physically doing something or if you visualize doing it. Now, obviously, a lemon is, fine. It's a bit of an irrelevant example here. But if we apply that to the way we perform or the way we learn a new skill or even, the way we public speak, how we embody confidence, if we can use mental rehearsal we can start training our mind and body to be like that. And, you know, if I go a little bit deeper into the science, there's a system in your brain, which is basically, it's the RAS system, which is your reticular activating system. And what it does is, you know, when I say to you, like, oh, let's say you got a new car and you suddenly see that new car like everywhere, it's your brain's filter system. So when you are visualizing things, even if you're visualizing your goals or where you want to be, what it does is it starts to train your brain's filter system so that you start seeing more opportunities that are aligned with that, or you start seeing yourself being successful. And so there are many different, aspects that get affected when you do visualization. But generally, the science I would want someone to remember is that the brain is really struggling to know if you're doing it or if you're imagining it. So let's use that to our advantage.
It's so fascinating, isn't it? You mentioned confidence, which is a topic that I want to get stuck into as well, but sticking with the science bit for a second, are there any fast facts? I love kind of some of these little factoids. Are there any sort of statistics or anything that come to mind on this subject?
So I'm going to address like quite a big elephant or an objection I get a lot, which is, oh, Maya, this just sounds like manifestation. And it's not about whether I believe in manifestation or not, but what I will say is visualization is a mental practice that is so deeply wired in science and neuroscience that we should take it seriously. So when it comes to the facts, there have been many experiments that have been done for this. A very famous one is the basketball experiment. And they had basically 3 groups. The first group were physically going on court, practicing free throws. So, you know, when we physically practice something, we're going to get a bit better. The second group were just mentally rehearsing. So they would sit in kind of like a meditative position, close their eyes, and they would visualize them getting the ball through the net. They'd hear the audience. They'd feel like the sweat of it, etc. And then there was the third group, which was control. So they did nothing. And the results showed that the control group, no change. The ones who physically practiced, there was about a 21% difference in their performance, which is great. So they had, you know, got better at it. But the fascinating thing is that the ones who just mentally rehearsed, there was between 18 and 20% change in their performance. Now, just take a step back and look at that. They haven't even touched the ball, and yet they've still been able to impact their performance. That is pretty cool. And this experiment has been repeated in different ways. I think the ones I find really fascinating are they did it with piano players where they actually saw changes in the muscles in their fingers just by not even touching the piano, but they're visualizing it, but your body reacts to that. So that was really cool. And actually more recently, in 2021, they did an experiment with cricketers, and they've done it with table tennis players as well, where, again, they said, okay, if we make them visualize, you know, them going out on the pitch and hitting well, etc., what happens to their confidence? What happens to how effective they are when they actually perform? And it's just increase. And one thing I will say, whether it's 1%, whether it's 10%, that is cool. You know, you don't even, there's so much power in the mental training of this that, like, we've got to take it seriously. So yeah, I think the experiments are great, and there's only just so much more coming in that, which is really cool.
The film Limitless just comes to mind with all of this, right? Yeah. It is. It's like you're helping these people untap their limitless potential without the drug side effects.
Exactly. No, it's true. It's true. Actually, that's what I find quite interesting. I don't know about my opinion on psychedelics just yet, but what visualization does is very similar to what a psychedelic is doing, but you're not putting any drugs or things in your body. What you're doing is using the most powerful part of you, which is just the thing between your ears. And none of us know how to take advantage of it. And so, yeah, I'm like, that can make you limitless. And I think the point is, for, I'd say 90% of people, they are limiting themselves with how their brain works. So that's the problem. We're in negative. We're not even in neutral. We're in negative. We are limiting ourselves.
Well, very nice segue into my next point. So I was going to come on to the self-confidence topic, because what you just say there specifically around kind of some of that negative talk, on the outside, on the surface, there are attributes that you have that for most, if not, you know, all people would see as a disadvantage. So I know age is just a number, but I was floored to learn how young you actually are, which makes me feel quite old. Your background, you're a young brown woman, you have no formal education, you don't have a PhD in neuroscience, and yet that hasn't hampered this infectious, amazing self-confidence that you have. So of course you attribute this to visualization, but can you break down exactly sort of what you've done to really boost your own self-confidence?
Yeah, I really like that. So I'm pretty obsessed with confidence. The first thing I would say is I very quickly learned the difference between being confident and then having self-confidence.
Okay.
So being confident is like, being the loudest in the room. You can get on stage and people are like, wow, like she can do her thing, right? That external one where actually you are internalizing external validation. It's what the world sees as confident. But that person could be super anxious inside. They could be so insecure. And I've been in many situations like that. Now, on the other hand, self-confidence is where you can be the loudest, the quietest in the room, but you feel secure in yourself.
You don't have anything to prove.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And that's an inner game. Self-confidence is an inner game. And so I spent a lot of time working on, okay, how can I build my self-confidence? And first I needed to understand, okay, what does that actually mean to me? What does a self-confident Maya look like? How does she feel? How does she even speak? And that is where visualization really came in. But then I also think there are tiny, tiny things we can do every day that can help build it. So a good example is look at people in the eye. Simple as. It's scary to do in the world we live in because we're so used to our phones. Look at someone in the eye. Know how to say no. Treat your time, your energy like currency. Like put yourself in that position where actually, no, I am a valuable person. Little things like stand a bit taller, pause before you speak. There's such little things that I don't think work for everyone, but I want you to experiment with them. And then along with that, I would visualize, okay, long-term speaking, what does Maya look like? What does she feel like? And that helped me in the short term as well as the long term. So then what was happening is every day I was seeing the small changes, but I was also rewiring my brain in the process, which meant that I started to act like that as well. And now it's just part of my identity. And I think there's obviously a line where you can then get a bit arrogant. So it's important to understand, you can be very confident whilst being quiet. You can be confident on your own. And the thing that really changed it for me is when I woke up and when I went to bed, I still felt confident. And that showed me that I had actually changed my self-confidence and it wasn't just an external validation thing that I was experiencing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I get it. I was reflecting on this morning, actually, obviously excited to interview you today. And I remembered one of the greatest compliments I ever had was, anyone who knows me in real life, we're both pretty petite. We're kind of smaller kind of women. What's your height,
I'm like 5'2".
Right, I think I'm the same.
Oh, yeah, I know. I'm not confident about that. I can say that. Yeah.
I can tell. You should be. Small but,
yeah,
small but mighty.
Small but, exactly. Got that fire. Yeah.
Perfectly formed, strong little women.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of, thinking about interviewing you this afternoon. And I remembered I was in an office with a load of people. This was pre-2020. And I don't know why, we kind of bored. It was kind of dead afternoon or something. We were bored and kind of looking at different heights and stuff. And this girl in the office who I'd worked with at this point for, I don't know, at least a year, you could see on her face how shocked she was to see how small I actually was when I stood up kind of next. She was like, wow, it was like one of the biggest compliments because to your point on, the little things that you can do, standing up a little bit straighter, standing taller, and without even really realizing it, I'd projected a level of confidence that really surprised us. Like, oh, wow. So I love that. And I think that sticking with this kind of self-confidence point for a second, the other reason I wanted to talk to you about this is because in my research, listening to some of your older episodes, I can tell how much your self-confidence has risen with the podcast that you've done over time. It was funny, one of the older ones you did, you were just kind of, you were a bit more kind of giggly, more ashamed, like, oh, and even your story with how you came to realize the power of the mind, which we can talk about as well. Even that, you were still kind of like, oh, it's a bit embarrassing. But now, of course, you completely own it as part of your story. So if you want to share a little bit about that to bring people up to speed, and I'll ask you the next one. I'll stop there for a second.
Yeah, of course. I'll be really honest here. I don't think I'll ever get to a stage where I'm more confident about telling my story, because every time I say it, it's a very like, I don't find it hard, but I think every time is just different because I think I'm in a different place when I do. But yeah, I guess for those who don't know, so I was a very like high achieving young woman. I was from a South Asian family. So, you know, high grades. I was also training in national badminton. So sports was like my thing and had very like high prospects as well. And then I started developing these symptoms where when I went to the loo, there was just like a lot of blood and it was a lot of pain as well. And then when I was 15, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which is an inflammatory bowel disease, which is quite common, but the severity of mine was just like unfathomable. It still baffles me today because, you know, every day it was like going to the loo 30, 40 times. I was wearing adult nappies most of my school life. I was having accidents because the things that we take for granted every day of like going to the loo or walking or eating, just none of that was easy for me at all. But I think the thing that was probably most crippling was the physical and mental pain of it all. You know, you're in pain that is so dehumanizing, and then you're scared of the pain. So like when you're not in pain, you think that's coming up. So then it's just like you aren't in, I didn't even know night till day. I just didn't know it. And then mentally, because there was so much shame associated with going to the loo or not feeling like a woman in any way. And I didn't tell a single person. Like no one in my school knew, my friends didn't know, because not gonna lie, at 16, if you're telling people that you shit yourself and you know, it's not a nice thing, right? And so I lost a lot of friends. I missed a lot of school. And ultimately, you know, I had to give up basically everything. My sport, my future at uni, even just my social life. And I think the thing is I became so bitter towards the world, rightly so. Like I just hated everyone. I hated everything. It was unfair. I was so broken and I just didn't want to be here really. Like it was the painless option to just give up. And then it was in hospital when a nurse basically introduced me to the concept of visualization. And I started to mentally rehearse walking again. And then also I saw myself in Bristol, like studying. It was my dream at the time. And I just kept doing it. And it's not like, oh my gosh, everything changed overnight. But I got a little bit of hope. And I think what I realized is hope is actually one of the most powerful things humans have. Hope is like, it can take you out of some really dark places. Even if it's delusional, I don't care. I think hope is powerful and we should never, ever like take it for granted. And then when I left hospital, I basically continued visualizing every day. I trained with the best, you know, trainers, neuroscientists. I read every book under the sun. I just kept going and going and going. And then I did get to go to uni, which is exciting. And I decided to start the business so that I could share visualization to more people. But the cool thing is, going from going to the loo 40, 50 times a day, adult nappies, extreme pain, about 60 tablets a day, and going for infusions every 6 weeks, I am now sitting here on no medication, the healthiest I've ever been, the most grateful I've ever been, the most educated as well I've ever been, but also I am now helping others take control of their own mind and body. Now, you do not need to be ill or have colitis to do this. And And I'm sad that I actually had to go through such an extreme situation to get to where I am. But if this is my purpose and my mission, I got to do it, right?
And you're here because of it.
Yeah.
Wow, Maya, I had no idea that it was so dark for you. I'm really sorry that to hear that it took you to such. Obviously, I'm aware of your background, but as you say, it's completely day and night with, imagining your life, what it used to be, to where you are now and sat here across from me. It's such a powerful story. So sticking with the self-confidence theme for a second, just on that again, with such a huge kind of transformation that I can only imagine that you've had. I know that there are kind of these famous tricks that celebrities do. So for example, you've got kind of Beyonce's got her alter ego, her Sasha Fierce. Some people might need to wear a particular outfit to kind of feel their best selves. Do you have anything like that at all? Are there any other similar kind of places that you go to help give yourself a confidence boost when you need to?
So obviously my go-to would be visualization, because I can step into that really quickly and just shift quite quick.
And is that, so to paint a bit more of a picture for the listeners, is that kind of just imagining, I heard you describe it as kind of more like active daydreaming, like imagining the details of the scenario?
So there's two ways you can do it. Either, so for someone who doesn't feel confident right now, you would close your eyes, you would imagine a time you have felt confident, so what that looks like and what you were doing, but also how does it feel in your body? And then you bring that feeling to the present moment and you take it into where you're about to go. But for me now, I will close my eyes and I will be like, okay, what is Maya wearing? How does she walk? And that's actually a really good thing, because then when you are walking to a room, you do walk like that. 2, how does she interact with people? Is she quite warm? Does she hug someone? Even for example, today when I came in and I was obviously like, oh my gosh, Steph, I'm sweating, I need to go hairdryer it. That is confidence. I'm not scared about what happened. Yeah. And I think if I would have gone oh guys, can I just use the loo quickly? But I don't care. If you judge me, you judge me. I'm human. And so I think it's about knowing, okay, Maya, how do you want to show up in this world? And I will do that. And I will feel it in my body. I feel it in my heart. I get a bit tingly. And then all it is a 2-3 minute thing and I'm ready to go. So that's definitely one. And I think the other thing is, I think kindness is really underrated, really underrated, to the point that just talk to someone on the bus, talk to a taxi driver, talk to the person you get a coffee from, because by talking to strangers, that's actually probably been the best thing I've done for my own self-confidence, because it's kind of scary, right? And look at the world we live in. Everyone's so scared to just say hello. If you're really ready, say it on the tube. That is risky.
Wow, that's hardcore.
Yeah. That is teach me. But I think you're just, either someone will ignore you, they'll say no, but cool. I think just exposing yourself to situations you wouldn't really normally do is kind of fun.
Yeah. To pushing yourself just slightly outside of your comfort zone and realize that the world hasn't caved in on itself.
Yes. But gosh, I feel like I have so much in this area. But the other thing, which I think not enough people do, is, we have these we're like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym today, or I'm gonna eat healthy. When you do not keep those promises to yourself, your self-esteem goes so down. It is directly linked. So the promises that you make to yourself, you keep them. If you say you were going to go to the gym, go. And if you are scared that you're going to let yourself down, start very small. I am going to ring my friend today. When you follow through with that, you build a type of competence that feeds your self-confidence, because you're building your integrity, right? You're I can do it.
So I can see the link between fulfilling your promises and self-respect, because it's a promise to yourself, but how does it tie to your self-esteem?
So when we don't keep the promises to ourselves, right, we feel like we've let ourselves down. So we don't think we're good enough. We don't think we can do it. Right. Or we just, when it's a really hard scenario where you want to be X person, but you're that person, and you just keep seeing the gap. But just slowly build that gap, and you just naturally build that confidence. It is a skill. No one is born confident, but every single day you can shape yourself to be that. I don't say there are some days I don't feel very confident. Cool, but I know the tools to make me feel confident, and that's what's key.
on the person you are, the one you want to be, it just reminds me of the meme with the two alarms.
Yeah.
I set one alarm for the person I am.
Yeah, and the other one, the other one wins always though, let's be
like
honest. Yeah.
Super relatable.
Yeah.
The other thing that I just noticed there listening to you is for referring to yourself in the third person. So earlier on, kind of like, how does Maya show up? What does Maya wear? Is that something that you do consciously? Is that another little hack there?
To be fair, like I think it's, this is really interesting. I think as I try and shape my identity more and more, detaching from my current identity is really useful because then I'm not like, I don't want to like, I'm not thinking, I need to grieve her and let her go. I'm kind of like, I know she's always evolving. So cool. Like I have control over that. Maybe it just makes it easier for me. And I think like when talking about things like confidence, because I'm not that person just yet, cool, I may refer to her like that. So yeah, I actually haven't noticed that, but probably I use it in a way to detach so that I can attach to a new type of version of me, basically.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I read a lot more about the power of how we self-identify in the past couple of years. And it was I think there was just a coincidence where I read about like hardcore criminology, so around like serial murderers and all this stuff, just interested on from a psychological perspective. And then the next book I read straight after was more of kind of a professional self-development sort of self-help book, and there was a pattern, and they both talked about the power of identity. And essentially with the murderer one, I'm a weirdo like that. I have very eclectic tastes. There was this transition with the worst criminals where they gave themselves that label. So after they'd committed something, obviously it kind of escalate, start with kind of stealing something or, and it gets worse from there. And when it does, they give themselves that label. Oh, so now I'm this. And so that's obviously, a horrible, more of a negative side of it. But then the positive is, of course, what we're talking about here is how you want to show up, being your most confident, kind of authentic self. Quick one, I need to tell you a bit about Patreon. If you haven't heard of it before, Patreon is the creator platform that enables people like you to support podcasters like me. I actually studied art history for all of 5 minutes, which is where the whole idea of patronage, aka financially supporting artists, comes from. Kings and queens would commission artists to create paintings to adorn their castle walls. Upper class lords and ladies celebrated their accomplishments by using their wealth to support the arts. And during the Italian Renaissance, my favourite era, the Medicis actually developed a close bond with Michelangelo, who painted the Sistine Chapel, and the Sforza family supported Da Vinci, who helped name Leonardo DiCaprio. That is a true story, by the way. Anyway, I know that you're not here for a history lesson thrown in to your business studies class, but if you're feeling like a rich Renaissance royal who wants to support your very own little Botticelli here, then Patreon is the solution for you. Simply tap the link in the show notes to select your tier of patronage to support the show. It starts from a low amount, and it really means a lot to help me to continue producing these interviews that I hope you enjoy. Thank you so much for listening. Let's get back into the episode. So I know that you've got to where you are now because you practice visualization 2 hours a day. Is that correct?
Yeah, around 1 to 2 hours, yes.
And I love how you did the physical fitness connection with that as well, because you kind of compare it to weightlifting, right? Yeah. So it's kind of like
strength training.
To the gym,
yeah, exactly that.
So you can now sort of lift 100 kilos.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like people are like, oh my God, I can't do that. But I don't think you should. Like I've been doing this for now, 10 and a half years. Wow. So if you are starting, go for 2 minutes. Exactly. Go for 5 minutes. That's all you need. It's like lifting weights. You're going to start, 2 kilograms, 5 kilograms, and then build it up. And that's cool. So yeah, it's not about jumping straight to an hour. Like it's, and I still do my mini, 2-3 minute ones. That's cool. Yeah, nice. I just love the long ones for me.
And it connects back to what we were talking about as well before with the promises you keep to yourself. So even with this, so if you want to do 2 minutes, a few minutes, I know you've got exercises, you can download the audio recordings to just kind of keep that first promise with yourself and then gradually kind of build from there.
And I think the thing that's really helped me, which I haven't really heard of, so I either see be super disciplined, like be, like David Goggins vibes, or it's like, oh no, be super kind to yourself. So I kind of merged the two and I was like, right, compassionate discipline is what works for me. Now, if I miss 1 or 2 days, cool, that's okay. Maybe something was going on. Maybe you were just, that's fine. But if I miss a week or maybe 2, that's when I'm like, okay, Maya, you've lost your discipline now. What is actually going on? So 80% of the time I have insane discipline. Amazing. But if I have a bit of fun or do something else for 20% of it, that's cool. Like that is compassion. Like I'm just, I want to watch Netflix all day. Fine. But it's when I really start to not keep it up for enough time, that's when I'm like, okay, go back and find the discipline again. So compassionate discipline is a very good way to maintain habits, start habits, but also protect yourself and your relationship in the process, because, I don't think it has to be 100% of the time. I don't think it has to be like that.
I love that so much. It's such a great concept to share with our listeners. I really do love that. I definitely fall more up the end of the harder discipline, and then of course it sends you down this downward spiral when you don't keep those promises to yourself, when you fall off,
feel guilty,
and you start beating yourself up, so you don't get anywhere with that. I think actually I'm trying to remember if it was, I think Andy Ayim, who's also been on the show, he's amazing. I think he also talks about kind of just sort of working a bit more instinctively with those sorts of things, like, watch out for if you trip up a bit too much, but otherwise, you've got to allow for some of that tolerance to be human, right? To be a human being. So now you've worked your way up to kind of 2 hours to create that space in your diary. I know that we can create space for the things that we prioritize. However, I think everyone listening is a busy founder, running around, then there are never enough hours in the day. What advice could you give? What do you do to actively carve out that time in the day?
Okay, 2 things I'd say. I actually recently listened to was it a podcast? Maybe it was a journal. It was saying that they did this study on basically the top billionaires and most successful people in the world, whatever that means. And the biggest thing they found was that every single one of them would make sure that they carved out at least 1.5 hours for themselves, just for themselves, before they even enter the world. If that meant they had to wake up earlier, fine. If it meant they had to start meetings later, fine. So one aspect I'm going to say is, if you do not prioritize, it's just fact, you need to. That's one aspect I'm going to say. The second thing is, I do get we're busy and people may have kids. We're also traveling, etc. So I would say tiny, tiny, tiny things often make big differences. And so when I'm busy, I'll sometimes do my visualization on the train, or I might just do it just before I have my morning tea, or before I'm about to brush my teeth. Again, the discipline aspect, but I understand that some days I'm only going to do 3 minutes. Now, if I'm super pushed for time, what I have done before is I'll be on a meeting and I'll be like, hey, I need to do 3 minutes of visualization. Do you want to join? Sometimes they're like, no. I'm like, cool, well, I'm still going to do it. Do you mind? I don't, if they don't respect that, I shouldn't be working with them either. But if you've got a team, do it with them. This is something that people will want and respect. So it's great. And again, if I get to the end of the night, even if I can, put in 2 minutes, 3 minutes there, great. So I think, and there's that, I can't remember the exact saying where it's if you're busy, or some people, you're meant to do 20 minutes a day, but if you're busy, you need to do 2 hours. I agree with that. If you are busy, that is not an excuse. I don't have time, I don't have money. It's not an excuse.
It's all the more reason to, right?
Exactly.
Right.
You're in that cycle. But I'm also understanding that maybe we can't all carve out an hour. And, the one thing I do really empathize with is, if I look at the wellness industry, it's okay, wake up at 5, do an ice bath, do journaling for 20 minutes, then go on a 10K run, then meditate, then visualize. Honestly speaking, I get it. It's overwhelming. You have to find the routine that works for you. Some people, it will be 2 hours. Some people, it will be 2 minutes. All I ask is just give yourself a little bit of time. I don't ice bath. I don't go on a 10K run. I actually wake up and I dance straight away. You've got to shape it for you. I think as long as we keep the basics good, you hydrate, you move, you train your brain, and you connect with the world and nature, you're good. But a lot of people, we wake up, phone, or emails, or everyone's screaming and you just got to go straight on with your day. That's the problem. So if you can win your morning, you can win the day. So 2 minutes in the morning would just be the best thing ever. Or even when you're sleeping or you're just about to wake up, go for it.
So you're totally on my same wavelength, because I was exactly thinking about all of the things that we should be doing within the wellness space for those 5 minutes, hour and a half, whatever time we can carve out, because in my experience and personally, I've had to carve out that time to kind of go out in nature, move my body. Like that's been a really big thing. I'm the fittest now I've ever been, because I'm kind of prioritizing that side of my health. So given this vast array of, nutrition, physical, all these different wellness activities that we could be doing with that finite time, bearing in mind, I get what you're saying of like, okay, well, wake up early if you need to find that, you find it where you can, but I feel like, the lack of sleep eventually catches up with you. So it has to be embedded into the sustainable habits where you are getting enough sleep, you're getting, you're well nourished, you're well fed and everything else. I guess the question here is, how important is visualization? Where can someone stack that? Even within they're already carving out, they're finding some time, because I get it, we can all carve out some time, we can find 30 minutes or whatever in our days. Where does that sit alongside the going for a walk, the, just zoning out, listening to a podcast, whatever?
So your mind is half your health. So whether it's important or not is not really a question. Like it's a necessity. It is a necessity. Where you can stack visualization, I think the reason I love it more than anything is once you learn it, it's a matter of doing it like 15, 20 seconds. Simply. Like, I'll give you an example, right? When I get anxious, now that I've learned what visualization is and I've practiced it enough, when I get anxious, I will immediately close my eyes, I'll feel the anxiety, I create a picture of it, so it might be like, a red fire in my stomach. I use my mind to put water over it or slow it down, and I already feel better. That is 20 seconds of my life. But because I know the technique and I've practiced it, etc., it means that in my day-to-day life, I can just do it in those snippets. And so I think I still remain, at the beginning, stack it to a habit that you've already got, right? So whether it's brushing your teeth, whether it is your morning coffee. And actually, the cool thing about visualization is, you know when you're laying in bed and you're like, oh, a bit tired still, do it then. It's great for your brain. But I think, even if it's just 2 minutes a day, that you do for at least 2 weeks, you will at least start to get used to it. And the cool thing is you will feel the benefits quite immediately. So then you're going to want to do it. It's like when you go to the gym, you like it. Well, hopefully. So then you tend to go a bit more. And even before you go to the gym. So now when I'm in the gym, after my gym, I'll do a quick visualization. And people are like, what is she doing? I don't care. Like, I need to get this in. So I may take out 5 minutes from my run into that. And that's okay. Like, I do not think, we can think of so many excuses, but I just won't take them. Like, you can find 2 minutes in your day.
Well, I love especially how you paint that picture of, or you're still a bit sleepy in bed. The other great advantage to doing visualization is you don't need a gym membership. No. Doesn't cost anything. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to have the right outfit. You don't have to have the right tools. You know? You can do it. You can find those moments. So whether you're sleepy in bed or on the tube. So I love that. I mean, I was converted long ago, but all the more reason. So moving on a little bit to your business. Mm-hmm. So Remap Mental Fitness. I love how you've got, again, the physical, the mental fitness. So you've got that aim of making mental fitness as common as physical fitness, and that line of helping CEOs, athletes be in the top 1% of their field. How are you actually doing that? What is the work that you're doing with Remap?
Yeah, so I kind of have like two roles. So Remap, the aim is to build the Nike of mental fitness. Like, 100%. When I think about, right, how can I train my mind? I want people to think Remap. That's all about remapping the brain. Now, a lot of people have said to me, oh, like Maya, you should do what Headspace did. Do like meditation and breath work. Honestly, no. I want to niche down so much into this one technique that like people realize that really that's kind of all you need, right? But I want to become the go-to person in that space. And so how we do that, with Remap, we host Mental Fitness Live every month, which I know you came to. So that's about making mental fitness physical. You know, when I learned like meditation and stuff years ago, it was something you had to do on your own. Like, kind of felt like you had to be on a mountain as well, like just on your own, don't tell anyone kind of thing. Like, I don't do this. But I'm like, no, this is cool. This is sexy. Let's do it together. Let's build a community. So that's why I like bringing, you know, a lot of people together and we do it all at once. So that's the mental fitness live aspect. And a big mission of mine is to make it accessible. Because visualization has stayed amongst the elite athletes and CEOs for decades now, and it never trickled down, I'm helping do that. So we are building a platform where people can do them on demand, where, you know, you don't have to then like think about it too much. You just put the recording on and it can help you in that situation. But again, the community aspect is key. So just like how when we think of Nike, we're like, right, just do it. We're like, we get the community, we get the feeling. That is what I want to create. But then, yeah, individually, I also will coach high-performing CEOs, athletes, executives, performers, basically. Why? I'll be honest. Firstly, I need to keep pushing myself. I need to keep getting better at my craft. That means I need to keep practicing the basics and I need to keep working with the best in the world so that I can marry the two and bring it to the mainstream. And I love working with people like that because they're visionary. They don't see limits. They still have limits in their brain, but they don't want them. And so that's kind of the one-to-one coaching aspect. And then, yeah, the big mission is we got to do world domination, you know?
I love it. I'm here for it. I'm loving it. I'm feeling the energy, the power. I want that for you too. It's fantastic. You mentioned, what was it you just said before? You made me think of something. Oh, the limits that they still have in them. You were saying they have the limits, but they don't want them. What you made me think there is I definitely know people, perhaps I'm even a victim of this myself, who maybe don't really want like the good stuff. Have you ever come across that before? Do you have any thoughts on that? Like some people like want to stay where they are.
Yeah. And I love that as well. So I was with my friend the other day and I was like, oh my God, like what's the dream? What's the vision? She was like, yeah, I'm so excited to be a stay-at-home mum. And I haven't heard that actually recently. But you know what? I was like, go you. That is amazing. And when I say think, feel, and perform like the top 1%, I don't mean that has to be that you are taking over the world or building businesses. I just mean, do you know how to handle your emotions, your stress, your confidence? Do you know how to have better self-talk and that you can make decisions and that you aren't overthinking? And do you know how you can achieve the goals you want, even if that is being at peace or, you know, being a stay-at-home mum? So I think the first thing is to understand that top 1%, what does that really mean to you? For some people, yeah, it will be like, you know, being president, but for some people it's not. And that's totally cool.
I guess one thing is people have their different goals and desires, exactly, which is great. Like whatever works for you is fantastic. But I definitely know people who want the bad stuff as well. Like as weird as it sounds to say out loud. So people who like to complain. And some, you know how it's like, some people might tell you like we all need to vent sometimes and just get stuff off our chest. But I definitely know people who almost thrive in that, who want to keep it, that where it's become so calcified over time that I guess it's formed part of their self-identity and maybe it's too scary to move out of it. But it's almost like, you know, like the comfortable complainers.
Exactly. And you've hit it on the head there. Hit the nail on the head. We seek comfort and we're addicted to our problems too. So we would absolutely rather live a life sitting in comfort than in the discomfort of like uncertainty. And I was the same. Like, you know, one of the most comfortable positions is victimhood. Exactly. Oh my gosh, it's the best thing because, you know, you feel sorry for yourself. It's very comfortable. You don't have to do anything. And I happily stayed there for years.
How do you get out of that? That really resonates. Like, what are the steps to getting out of victimhood?
So I do think it depends. And obviously I don't think there's like a black and white answer. For me, what helped me was finding a little bit of meaning in my life. Like I think the word purpose is really overused because I don't think we have one purpose. I think purpose is attained on a daily basis. But when I was in victimhood, honestly, it's a decision you have to make to be like, do I want more for my life? If not, fine, stay in victimhood. And I know many people who are there. But if you do, then actually you can make the decision right now to okay, not just flip the mindset, but take one step towards it. Follow a little bit of joy, find a little bit of something that makes you feel alive, use it as a GPS. But victimhood is just you protecting yourself. And so I think first it has to be that decision that you actually want it. And sometimes when I coach people, the first thing I ask is like, okay, but do you actually want to get better? Do you actually want to do that? And so if they're like, well, obviously. I'm like, yeah, but do you? I don't know. I can't feel that you want it. And yeah, it's a brave thing to be like, no, I actually do want this. And so I think really victimhood is a human thing and you can sit in it for a long time. But I think first you need to make that decision. Then it's about taking little steps towards being a victor of what you're doing. And I think the difference is, and I don't think a lot of people like it when I say this, is no one is coming to save you. If you are a victim, you have to take responsibility for yourself. No one else is coming. But actually, we can see that in two ways. Either taking responsibility as like, oh, for goodness sake, or it's like, okay, I have responsibility. I have the power to take me out of this state and take me into a new one. And that is a really, really good position. I
think it's important to remind people, especially if they're used to it, if it's just, again, become a habit, that they've fallen into this comfortable space, is a reminder, you don't have to, because I think over time, I'm definitely, victim of this, is over time, you don't even realize it's not a conscious choice anymore, but these reminders of like, you don't have to accept this. You do actually have a choice. You can actually control things. All right, we're going to move things along. So you talked a little bit about kind of the Remap Mental Fitness. Yeah. So you've got kind of the one hat, which is the one-on-one kind of training, if you like. And then you've got the mental fitness live events, which are amazing. I can definitely vouch for that. As you say, I came to one and it was just mind blowing. We had tears streaming down our face. Oh my God, it was incredible. So definitely go and check that out if you can. You're an entrepreneurial journey, just to touch on that fairly briefly with whatever time we've got left. What have been kind of the struggles for you in your entrepreneurial journey, starting your business, and how have you used visualization again to help overcome some of those challenges in business?
I think my biggest struggle was how to do entrepreneurship, like
how to do it.
Yeah, but in the way that, hustling and stress and all of that landed me in hospital. And I was so scared to go back into it. I really didn't want to. It is a really toxic culture. And a big struggle of mine was like, Maya, do it your way. Slow productivity, seasonal entrepreneurship. That's what I love. I love sprinting. I love walking and then resting. I treat it like I'm doing the Olympics. And so I have these like harvest seasons, which is great. But when I look around me, it's like no one's doing that. So I'm like, oh my God, is that the wrong thing? So that is a big struggle of mine to this day, is like, I want to build a company without killing myself in the process. And I see so many entrepreneurs that, they sell their company for millions and they're like, I'm super unhappy and I'm now really unwell. That is not what I want for my life. That's definitely one aspect of it. Two, I've actually been really surprised that in the sports industry that I kind of dabble in, I am like very often the only woman of color in that room. And everyone talks about how in the corporate space that, diversity, inclusion is like really important. But why is no one talking about it in the sports arena? When I go to these conferences or when I'm talking at these big companies, like, it's just not there. Yes, athletes are obviously like very broad and there's a lot of diversity, but actually in the companies and when it comes to who is at the top of these places, I don't see anyone there that looks like me. So that is a really big thing that I recently realized.
Which connects back to what I was saying before about all those attributes that you have from the outside looking in. Anyone else would be like, I'm the only young brown woman in the room. And they would kind of listen to that internal narrative. Obviously, you've got much better self-talk than that to overcome that. But obviously, this is the middle page that you talk about as well, what you're still dealing with while you're in it. Yeah, I'm on the middle page completely. Yeah. And like, look, I really struggle with envy as well. Yeah.
And I don't think it's spoken about enough. But you're in a very competitive environment and there are times I don't feel good enough. There are times where I'm like, oh my God, am I going to get there? But cool.
But can you use that to fuel you as well, I guess?
I do. But you know what instead I do is I make the belief louder. And that's where the visualization is great. Because I visualize every day my vision, where I want to be, what that goal is, that's way louder in my brain. So I always will remember, yes, I may have doubt. Cool, that's human. But as long as I see the end of the movie and I know I keep working towards that and I'm on this mission and I wire my brain for that success and performance, that's cool. And in that sense, I've done the best I can to get myself there. But look, like you said, entrepreneurship is a damn roller coaster. I literally, no one can predict it. No one. It's so uncertain, but you've got to have fun. And I'm just playing. I'm playing like I'm in a sandbox, and whatever happens, happens. I'm just proud of the person I'm becoming on the way. And truly speaking, I don't think I'm an entrepreneur. I don't think I'm a very good entrepreneur. But I am making a way or finding a way out of no way. So that's what I'm doing.
Maya, I love that. I'm so impressed by whatever label you want to put on it. I think whatever you're doing a fantastic thing. And I just want to highlight, some of the really important messages you've shared of, doing business your own way. Like I think you mention, you refer to some of those, the hustle culture and how you kind of kill yourself almost to raise millions and then sell the company for hundreds of millions, and then you're just kind of a shell of a human at the end of it. Entrepreneurship, I think, boils down to two core concepts. I think it's creativity and freedom. And yet we seem to have forgotten, the freedom part of it. You've gone out there to create something, but you can do it in your own way. Yeah. And that's part of the purpose of the show as well, is to share more of those kind of stories, different ways of doing business. It doesn't all have to be in that formulaic VC-funded sort of way. So thank you for kind of shining a light on that as well, Maya.
Yeah, no, of course.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time, which I always...
Part 2 incoming.
Exactly. This was just the warm-up.
Yeah.
Maya, thank you so much for your valuable time on the show and sharing such interesting stories and fascinating insights. I really hope that the people listening are taking away, some really, I hope they're going away and visualizing right now. So thank you so much again for coming.
No, of course. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
And thank you so much for listening. Please do hit that subscribe button. The episodes are weekly. Hope you've enjoyed this one with Maya. She's been amazing. So leave a comment below and tune back in for next week. Thank you so much.
hustling and stress and all of that landed me in hospital. It is a really toxic culture. I was also rewiring my brain in the process.
You're helping these people untap their limitless potential without the drug.
Visualization is a mental practice that is so deeply wired in science that